Alright guys, welcome back to another learning video. Alright, in the last video we launched this app and it launched, and here we go, the codes are here. Learn React, React, and learn React. We change it to yes, 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 and we save this. That will instantly reflect on here. Did I save it? Compile error. Okay. Plugin React was conflicted. Oh, I didn't install the React plugin or extension. React. Wait, I don't think it requires extension. Okay, there seems to be some sort of internal error. Maybe it's because of the folder name is a bit too long or something. But there we go, we deployed. We successfully deployed the app hosted by React Native. Node.js. All right, there we go. But for this session, I will not be deploying or editing anything in the Visual Studio Code because this system cannot take anything. If I compile something, I may have to wait for like 15 minutes for this to load. So I'm not doing that. But before we get into quick start, I'm gonna check this Nextjs, which was very much recommended in the installation part. When we were looking at the installation, hold on a second, I close this. When we were looking into the earlier installations, we ran into the Nextjs. If my guess is correct, Nextjs is something that replaces Express.js, but I don't know what Nextjs is, so we got recommended by Nextjs. I mean, from the reactjs, the Nextjs was recommended. The only thing we need to do is to find out what this is. I mean, you can look into it by this website and it will explain certain things, but we need to be very much certain and very much explained by Nextjs by Vercel, bringing the powerful full stack to the front end. Powerful routing and layers build complex interfaces while shipping less JavaScript. Building on React Server Components app now makes server first the default. Dynamic HTML streaming, full stack React applications made easy. Nextjs has all the tool we need to make the web faster. Okay. Client and server rendering, nested routing, data fetching, built-in optimization, TypeScript, support, API routes, middleware, Node.js and Edge runtimes, CSS support. Interesting, very much interesting indeed. Now if I click learn, it goes to foundation. If I click start learning, it also goes to the same page. So let's click start learning. Yes, this is the page that was building with full featured framework. It was recommended. Full featured framework. What does that mean? Is that mean React is not a full featured framework? But that is something only the experts can explain. Okay, if the experts actually recommend Nextjs instead of what is Nextjs? Nextjs 13 changes everything. Nextjs full course. Yes, my guess was correct. React, JavaScript. Okay, wait a minute. 5 reasons to use Nextjs over plain React. Is Nextjs the future of React? Dude, this is all something that 3 months ago. This is a recent change. Why I don't use Nextjs for my project anymore? Don't learn React in 2023. Okay, guys, we're getting some sort of advanced turn. Okay, first thing first, I wanted to know what the reactjs is, but this is like a hold on a second. To use next, okay, there's an introduction here in the Nextjs. To use Nextjs, it helps to be familiar with JavaScript, React, web-related concepts. By JavaScript, React, always topics. How do you know when you're ready to learn Nextjs? Welcome to Nextjs Frontend course, a beginner-friendly, example-led course. Will guide you through. Okay, they will literally tell you. You will build a simple project step by step, starting with the JavaScript application, then migrate it to React and Nextjs. Okay, React and Nextjs comes in with this. Each section builds on the previous one, so you can choose where to start depending on what you already know. This tutorial, assuming you have the knowledge of. Okay. Here's what. This tutorial assumes knowledge of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Yes, I did those. And no knowledge of React. If you're already familiar with the React, you can skip the getting started Nextjs or create your next. Oh, this Nextjs comes with React because what are they telling to you to skip is getting started. Where's the getting started part? Or create your first app. You can skip this if you already know React. But if you don't know, you should start with everything. Alright, start now. Nextjs is a flexible React framework that gives you building blocks to create fast application. But what exactly do we mean by this? Let's spend time expanding on what React and Node.js can help you. Building blocks of an application. There are a few things you need to consider building a modern application, such as user interface, routing, data fetching, rendering, integration, infrastructure, performance, scalability, developer experience. For each part of your application, you need to decide whether you build a solution yourself or you use another tool's libraries and functions. What is React? reactjs is a JavaScript including interactive interface. By user interacts, we mean the element that users see and interacts with on screen: logo, address, navigational form. By library, we mean React provides helpful functions to build UI, but leaves it up to developer where to use those functions in their application. Part of the React success that it is relatively unopinionated about other aspects of building application. Excuse me, my throat is. This has resulted in flourishing ecosystem of third-party tools and solutions. It also means, however, that building a complete React application from the ground requires some effort. Developer needs to spend time configuring tools, reinventing solutions for common application requirements. Nextjs is a React framework that gives you building blocks to create a web application. By framework, we mean Nextjs handles the tooling and configuration needed for React and provides additional structure, features, optimization for your application. Yeah, I was correct. Nextjs is something that replaces Express.js. You can use React to build your UI, then incrementally adopt Nextjs features to solve common application requirements such as routing, data fetching, integration, all while improving the developer and user experience. Whether you're an individual developer or part of a large team, you can leverage React and Nextjs to build fully interactive, highly dynamic, and performance web application. In the next lessons, we will discuss how you can get started with React and Nextjs. Alright guys, alright. What Nextjs, this tutorial does is, it teaches you React and Nextjs. That's what full stack is. You're not just starting with React. You're starting with React and ending with Nextjs, which means this tutorial is a full stack tutorial. Now, if I look into learning React, I'm gonna look into it and look into this as well. And after this, I will get to a conclusion, go with this or go with this. I mean, this is just React. We all know React is a front end that is just a user interface. But this user interface and the backend, that's what we're doing. We're learning full stack, and which we starting with React. But this is just my conclusion after reading this. Let's listen it from the experts.
Nextjs. Create fast, search engine optimized React apps with zero configuration. A traditional React app is rendered client-side, where the browser starts with a shell of an HTML page, lacking any rendered content. From there, the browser fetches the JavaScript file containing the React code to render content to the page and make it interactive. But there are two major drawbacks with client-side rendering. One, the content is not reliably indexed by all search engines or read by social media link bots. And two, it can take longer to reach the first contentful paint when a user first lands on the web page. Next is a framework that allows you to build a React app, but render the content in advance on the server, so the first thing a user or search bot sees is the fully rendered HTML. After receiving this initial page, client-side rendering takes over and it works just like a traditional React app. It's the best of both worlds, fully rendered content for bots, highly interactive content for users. Inside of a Next project, you have a pages directory. Each JavaScript file defined here exports a React component that represents a route in the application. In other words, the file structure here mirrors the actual URLs that the user will navigate to, and Next provides its own router to make navigation seamless. But the real magic comes into play when we talk about data fetching, because Next can perform multiple server rendering strategies from a single project. Static generation regeneration, or pre-rendering, allows you to render your pages at build time. Each page or component can implement a function called getStaticProps. It might fetch data from a cloud database, then pass the data as props to the component. You can then build your app to render out all the HTML locally and upload it to a storage bucket where it can be easily cached by a CDN. That works great for a blog or any kind of app where the data doesn't change often. But if the data does change often, you can implement server-side rendering, which builds the HTML page each time it's requested by the user. In the component, we implement data fetching with the getServerSideProps function. Instead of running at build time, this function runs at request time. That means the page will fetch the latest data on the server each time a new request comes in. That's great for pages with rapidly changing data, but maybe you want something in between. Yet another option is incremental static regeneration. By simply adding a revalidate option to getStaticProps, Next can regenerate a page whenever a new request comes in within a certain time interval. This has been Nextjs in 100 seconds. If you want to see more short videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Then open up VS Code and get ready to go beyond 100 seconds with a full breakdown of Next. Before we get going, I'd like to point out that I'm working on a full React Next Firebase course, which I hope to have finally finished by the end of January, which will be available to Fireship Pro members. My goal over the next few minutes is to teach you the fundamentals of Next while also explaining the complexities of server-side rendering. To follow along, open up the terminal and run npx create next app followed by the name of your app. And if you get lost at any point, make sure to grab the source code on GitHub or Fireship.io. Let's open up the project in VS Code and then go into the package.json file. In development, the only script we need to worry about is dev, which you can execute by running npm run dev from the command line, which will run our app on localhost 3000. That should give you the default boilerplate in the browser. Now, before we get into the React code, there's a few things that I want to point out. First, in the styles directory here, you'll notice how Next supports CSS modules. In the globals file, you can define styles that apply to the entire application. But in other files with .module, you can define classes that only apply to a specific route or component. And you don't have to worry about coming up with a bunch of unique class names or naming conventions when managing your styles. If you want to use styles from a certain module, you just import the style sheet in your JavaScript, then reference your styles in JSX as if the styles were a JavaScript object. That's pretty awesome, but from there, let's shift our attention over to the pages directory. Inside this directory, we define all of the pages and routes for the application. At the highest level, we have this _app.js file, which is like the main entry point into the app. In other words, every individual page will start from this template. Currently, the application only has one page, which points to the root URL and is defined by the component in the index.js file. When a user navigates to this URL, Next will find the default export, which is a React component, in this file. So every file or page in your application needs to have one default export. To demonstrate this further, let's create our first route. In the pages directory, create a new file called hello.js. Then we can define the content of this page by exporting a default React component from it. From there, we can go back to the browser and navigate to localhost 3000/hello, and we should get the content of that component. Congratulations, you just built your first web page with Next. But now let's imagine a route that's a little more complex. We have a cars route that should show a list of cars that...
Alright, Nextjs is something, but it comes with server-side rendering. Because React is a front-end rendering and this is a server-side rendering. Okay, now this video is 2 years old, so we're gonna look into something very recent. This is a 6-minute video. 5 reasons to use Nextjs over applying React. Is the Nextjs a feature of React? Alright, the thing is, it is React, but you know what? Let's not stumble upon everything.
It is October 26, 2022, and you're watching the Code Report. Just when you thought you had web development all figured out, along comes an entirely new build tool and a complete overhaul of your favorite framework.
We're ready for a new paradigm.
None of man's fantasies of evil can compare with the reality of
JavaScript. It's a what?
Dude, why are you putting memes into educational videos? That
Oh,
does
right.
not make
Nextjs
sense.
conf happened yesterday, and they made an extremely ballsy move to take the world's most popular JavaScript framework and linchpin of a unicorn startup and totally change up the developer experience. As you're about to see, these new features are game-changing and blazingly fast, but they're not without their trade-offs. Buckle up, because we've got a lot to unpack, starting with a brand new build tool called TurboPack. Now, I know you just switched over to the next-gen build tool Vite last week, but a new character has spawned. Vercel employs Tobias Koppers, the creator of Webpack, who knows a thing or two about module bundling. TurboPack was built from the ground up with Rust, which appeals to our novelty bias, and it integrates Turbo Repo to cache duplicate operations. Together, these factors can satisfy your need for blazingly fast speed.
TurboPack shows updates 10 times faster than Vite and 700 times faster than Webpack.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
TurboPack sounds amazing, but it's currently in alpha.
Dude, seriously, what's with the memes? Nextjs full course.
And I'm a bit skeptical. There's a massive ecosystem of Webpack plugins that will likely make migration very hard for existing apps. Vercel will likely need to count on community contributions with some kind of plugin system. And that might be difficult because JavaScript developers like me are too dumb and lazy to learn Rust. Furthermore, these speed gains are mostly relevant to big enterprise projects where teams over-engineer these giant monstrosities to guarantee job security. Vite with ESBuild is already fast enough for most projects, and it's got an awesome developer experience that's hard to beat. You should also know that Vercel has an angle to make money on this by remotely caching builds in the cloud. And Parcel has been using this architecture for a long time as well. What's way more exciting for me is the brand new routing system,
the best possible router,
which adds a smorgasbord of new possibilities and performance improvements to the framework. These are huge changes that they worked on directly with the React core team, but before you freak out, everything can be incrementally adopted so it won't break your existing project. Next 13 adds a new app directory that also uses file system based routing like before, but now it's all directory based, along with a bunch of naming conventions for different use cases. To create a page, you give the directory the name of the route, then add a page.js file to it. That exports the component you want to display there. Nice and simple. However, because it's a directory, we can co-locate extra components here as well, instead of needing to create a separate components directory or some other kind of convention. More importantly though, it opens the door to layouts and nested routing. When you give a file the name of layout.js, it creates a UI that can be inherited by the child routes. And when you navigate to a route inside of a layout, only the inner UI is rendered, as opposed to the entire page. This is really cool because we also have file naming conventions for loading and error that can render a different UI at the component level, based on its current state. For example, if the component breaks, it will render error.js instead of page.js, while the rest of the UI stays intact. And this just makes life so much easier. But by far the most epic feature in this new release is data fetching. Next is what you would almost call the official React framework now.
That's our endorsement, that this is the data fetching solution for React that everyone, I think, has been waiting for.
What I haven't told you yet is that all of these components are React server components by default. Server components are a low-level primitive in React that enables server-side rendering, but until now, they've always been kind of difficult for the common developer to use. It's a huge deal because now we can totally get rid of things like get static props and get server-side props. Instead, we can just write a plain JavaScript function that uses fetch and then await the result of that function directly in a component. No need to pass props back and forth between client and server. It feels totally natural, like you're just using vanilla JavaScript, and you don't even need to serialize data, which can be a major pain point. Furthermore, you can take concepts like ISR, SSR, and SSG and remove them from your brain. The new mental model revolves entirely around caching. By default, all pages will be cached to provide the performance of a static site. But if you want new data on every request, like SSR, you can add the cache no store option to fetch. Or for incremental static regeneration, use the next option with the number of revalidate seconds. And what's also amazing about all this is that the UI can be incrementally streamed in, thanks to React Suspense. All you have to do is define a loading.js file to define the UI. If a component is still awaiting data, it will automatically show it at the component level while rendering everything else in the application. Game-changing, but many of these features are clearly inspired by Remix. Credit where credit is due. But all is fair in love and MIT licensed code. But one thing Next is missing is a way to write data similar to Remix forms, which I think is a really great feature. feature. And weirdly, there's no way to write API routes in the new app directory as far as I can tell, and to me that just seems like a sloppy loose end. As I showed, data fetching looks amazing, but mutations are an entirely different story. In the docs, it says the Next team is working on a new RFC for mutating data, but currently you would use a client-side component, write your mutation logic, then pass a callback function of refresh to update any data on that route after the mutation is complete. This is kind of similar to how things work in React Query, but it seems like the framework could provide a more intuitive solution here. Overall, I think Next 13 looks amazing. However, these are major changes that basically make every Next.js tutorial out there obsolete. Even if these changes are a step forward, the reality is that people don't like change. Like people were rioting in the streets when Vue 2 went to Vue 3, even though it too can be adopted incrementally. Right now, everybody's super excited about these new features, but if you're the guy that has to migrate all that code, your initial excitement might soon turn to anger. Another criticism is that a Hello World app is still 90 kilobytes of JavaScript. It seems like it should be able to ship zero JavaScript apps like Astro, Quick, and so on, but that doesn't appear to be the case. In addition to the features I mentioned, there are all kinds of small optimizations, and one of them was even inspired by a video I made. Edge functions can now be set to a specific region, and it's great to see these big companies recognize that the shape of the planet is not an oblate sphere, but rather a level plane. And lastly, I'm working on a longer full tutorial for Next 13, which will be on my new channel Beyond Fireship, so make sure to subscribe over there. This has been the Code Report, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
To be short, they changed in the syntax. If you're watching any old Nextjs, it's obsolete. Okay, this is also something that says don't learn React in 2023,
to prevent you from
but
learning
we are in
React and other
2022.
relevant JavaScript frameworks like Vue.js and AngularJS. Instead, in this video, we will be covering the topics like what is React, importance of React, how to learn React, and finally where or when to use React. And basically this is the main point behind the creation of this video, because React alone is not enough to build rich SEO friendly and super fast applications these days. I will talk about the best alternative to React, which is also currently in a very high demand and will continuously be in the future. And this new technology might also replace React entirely. And the bonus part of this video is that I will also provide useful free resources that will help you learn React and get a job as a React developer. So let's get started. First of all, let's see what is React. React is a popular JavaScript library that is used to build awesome user interfaces and single page applications, also called as spas. React introduces the concept of components, by which we can divide the entire website into smaller components and then use logic and style for each component separately. Other than that, React also has a concept of JSX, which means that now you can write HTML and CSS in your JavaScript files. And this is what makes React the most popular and widely used JavaScript library for building user interfaces or front-end apps. With the help of React, you can write very well managed code that is easy to write and debug. Therefore, a lot of people really like to use React in their projects. Moreover, it is created by Facebook, and the stack that uses React is called the MERN stack, where R stands for React, and also this is the most popular web development stack these days. So now, as you have learned what React is, it's time to know what is the importance of React. So without React, making a dynamic website will not just be a tedious job for developers, but also it would be very difficult for the end user. Because as we have discussed earlier that React is used to create single page applications, therefore without React, navigation to other pages in a website will make the browser reload every time. But that isn't the case with React. Here we don't have the concept of pages. Instead, we will be having only one page and many components. Hence, React makes applications behave very dynamic and also fast because of the concept of components. Other than that, React is currently very in demand technology. So if you are a freelancer or web developer, you should definitely learn React. And if we talk about the companies who uses React, so the big companies such as Facebook, Instagram, Skype, Pinterest and many more uses React as a front-end library. Now let's see how you should learn React. Now I assume that you know JavaScript already because React uses JavaScript. In fact, React is a JavaScript library. Now in order to learn anything, you should start with the basics. And for this, you can watch my free course that I have created on YouTube. The link will be provided in the video description. You can also watch some of these tutorials that will help you learn React in a very beautiful manner. After you gain some experience in React, I highly recommend to build projects. Just start with small ones. You can build user interfaces out of designs that are already available on internet, build clones of different websites, and by the way, you can watch these tutorials on YouTube that are doing fantastic job in this category. And in this way, you can brush up your skills and become a professional React developer and can also apply for jobs as well. Finally, let's talk about the most important point of this video, and that is when to use React and what is the best alternative to React. So React is a great library, but it has some limitations. Now to step up your web development career with React, you can learn Nextjs. If you don't know what Nextjs is, then let me tell you that Nextjs is a React framework for building the front end of websites. It is a complete framework that has the concept of API development, which means that you can use Nextjs to create a medium to large scale website without any need of a backend. It also includes some of the newly and modern concepts like server-side rendering and static site generation. And here note that React itself is a JavaScript library, whereas Nextjs is a complete framework that uses React, and it also consists of the features like routing and navigation already built in. Plus it also includes some of the newly created concepts that I showed you earlier, such as static site generation and server-side rendering, that are used to fetch the data before the application actually loads and make a static website that also uses backend APIs and still feel dynamic. Moreover, Nextjs is very rich in SEO, which means that with Nextjs you can build websites that can be indexed in search engines very fast. On the other hand, React code is hidden on search engines, which make it harder to index in a browser. Now I know these words would be confusing to you if you are a beginner, but at the end I recommend Nextjs over React because Nextjs provides you most of the features that doesn't exist in React and makes your web development journey fast, smooth and flexible. So I hope you got the answer that why you should not learn React in 2023. Else you should consider Nextjs and use React inside Nextjs. For more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel and also press the bell icon next to it. So guys, thanks a lot for watching and I will see you.
Clap hands for this guy. Clap hands for this guy. He literally explained we are using React inside Nextjs, which means we make more compatible website. There you go, people. There you go. We got our answer. We got our answer. We are starting with Nextjs because here we will learn React only. Okay, here we will learn React only, but here we will learn React and Nextjs. That's what they said earlier. If you already are familiar with React, you can skip this. If you're not, you should start with this. So now our directions have changed. Now our journey has changed because in 2023 we got something that's better than React, and that's going to be featured. So alright, this is one thing about the JavaScript, these front ends. There will be certain updates and that will make your old codes, old syntaxes obsolete, and you will have to change things. Okay, you have to change things, you will have to switch up things. All right, now we started something, but we're moving to Nextjs, and that's the end of this video. Next video will be starting with Nextjs because the React core concepts comes within this. We are getting started with React here. JavaScript. This is kind of going to be like explanations, but this will be starting with React. We are learning React and Next.js at once because we are literally learning some new updated feature of the React.js. Alright guys, that's it for the end of this video. Now we got our answers from that video which we watched earlier. Clap hands for that guy because he literally explained the features very faster and explained why you need to learn React and why you should switch to Next.js. Because this is React. This is a React. It's just a simple name change to Next.js, but some features. This is React. Alright. Thank you guys for watching video. See you guys in the next video.